Greetings, fellow mystery enthusiasts. You've landed on the perfect channel for those who crave the unknown and the unexplained. Today's story is one that will leave you on the edge of your seat, with twists and turns that will keep you guessing until the very end. It's a mystery that has baffled investigators for years, and one that still sends shivers down the spine of anyone who hears it. So buckle up and get ready for a wild ride, as we dive into the mysterious case of the missing hiker. Our story takes place deep in the heart of the Rocky Mountains, where a group of experienced hikers set out on a 5-day trek through the wilderness. They were well prepared, with plenty of food, water, and camping gear. But as they made their way deeper into the mountains, something strange began to happen. One of the hikers, a man named John, started to act strangely. He would stop and stare off into the distance for long periods of time, as if he was seeing something that the others couldn't. His behavior was so odd that the rest of the group began to worry about his mental state. But they pushed on, thinking that it was just the stress of the hike getting to him. On the third night of the hike, the group set up camp in a secluded clearing near a stream. They cooked their dinner and settled in for the night. But as they were getting ready to sleep, John suddenly bolted upright and started to scream. He was pointing into the darkness, his eyes wide with terror. The others looked in the direction he was pointing, but they couldn't see anything. John was inconsolable, and the group spent a sleepless night, wondering what had caused his outburst. The next day, the group set out early, hoping to make up for lost time. But as they were hiking, John suddenly disappeared. The others searched for him for hours, but they couldn't find any trace of him. They called out his name, but there was no answer. As night fell, the group realized that they were lost, and they had no choice but to set up camp and wait for daylight. For the next 3 days, the group was stranded in the wilderness, with no food, water, or shelter. They tried to find their way back to civilization, but they were hopelessly lost. And then, on the 4th day, something strange happened. They heard a faint voice in the distance, calling out for help. They followed the voice, and after several hours of hiking, they stumbled upon a small cabin hidden deep in the woods. The cabin was deserted, but it was well stocked with food and water. The group was relieved to have found shelter, but they couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There were strange symbols etched into the walls, and the air was thick with a musty, unpleasant odor. And then, as they were settling in for the night, they heard a noise outside. It was a scratching, scraping sound, like something was trying to claw its way into the cabin. The group was terrified, and they barricaded themselves inside the cabin, using whatever they could find to fortify the doors and windows. But the scratching sound continued, growing louder and more intense, as if something was trying to break through the walls. The group was trapped, with no escape and no idea what was outside. As they huddled together, they heard a blood-curdling scream, followed by silence. When morning came, the group mustered up the courage to leave the cabin and see what had happened. But what they found was even more terrifying than anything they could have imagined. The missing hiker, John, was lying on the ground, his body twisted and contorted in a way that made it clear he had suffered a brutal and violent death. There were deep claw marks all over his body, and his eyes were open wide in terror. The rest of the group was in shock, unable to comprehend what had happened. They searched the area for any signs of what could have attacked John, but they found nothing. No footprints, no blood trails, nothing. It was as if John had been attacked by an invisible force. The investigation that followed was long and grueling, with detectives combing the area for any clues that could lead them to the killer. But the more they searched, the more confused they became. There was no evidence of any human or animal attack, and the claw marks on John's body were too deep to have been made by any known creature. The case remained unsolved, with no answers and no closure for the grieving hikers. And so, the mysterious case of the missing hiker remains one of the most baffling and chilling mysteries of our time. Was it the work of a supernatural force? An unknown creature lurking in the mountains? Or perhaps something even more sinister? We may never know the truth, but one thing is for certain. The wilderness can be a dangerous and unforgiving place. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and be sure to subscribe for more spine-tingling mysteries like this one.